They say no good deed goes unpunished, but what they don't tell you is that sometimes the punishment is less cosmic slap on the wrist and more full-scale simian insurgency. Welcome, dear viewers, to the tale of a well-intentioned disaster, a modern parable about activists, incarceration, and the terrifying realization that some doors are locked for a reason. Our story begins, as all great tragicomedies do, with a vision, a pristine sanctuary nestled deep in the Amazonian basin, built with the noble aim of rehabilitating the jungle's most charismatic criminals, its monkeys. For years, the Arcadia Primate Retreat had functioned less as a sanctuary and more as a luxurious, albeit gilded, prison. Walls of reinforced steel and nets of electrofiberglass housed thousands of primates, from the tiny territorial marmosets to the hulking, strangely philosophical howler monkeys. They lived in comfort, they ate gourmet fruit salads, and they were not free. Dr. Eris Thorne, the retreat's eccentric, deeply weary director, often joked that the monkeys were the happiest prisoners on Earth. They never complain about the Wi-Fi, he'd sigh. And their escape attempts are tragically predictable. He had the predictability part wrong. So wrong. Enter the Primal Liberation Front, or P, a shadowy, determined, and frankly, under-researched group of environmental activists. They saw the Arcadia Retreat not as a safe harbor, but as a monument to human arrogance. Their manifesto, transmitted through a series of encrypted TikTok dances, demanded immediate, total freedom for all incarcerated primates. The PLF, armed with nothing but good intentions, bolt cutters, and an almost superhuman ignorance of ecology, plotted their grand operation. It happened on a night thick with jungle mist, a night when the moon was a sliver of polished bone. They bypassed the alarms, sidestepped the automated fruit dispenser, defenses a surprisingly complicated task, and stood before the main containment block. And then, with a dramatic, almost theatrical swing of a heavy-duty sledgehammer, they shattered the primary lock. Boom! The doors burst open. The rush of air was followed by the rush of thousands of tiny, hairy bodies. The PLF cheered. They had achieved their goal. They had freed every monkey in the jungle. It was, they declared, the dawn of a new, harmonious age. A new, harmonious, and utterly terrifying age. Because they failed to account for a simple fact. After years of being pampered, protected, and fed high-protein pellets, the jungle was no longer the monkeys' home. The jungle was their enemy. And the primates, newly weaponized with freedom and a deeply repressed boredom, decided it was time to teach the forest a lesson. The silence that followed the initial jailbreak was perhaps the most frightening sound of all. It wasn't the peace of nature restored. It was the tactical lull before the storm. The activists, giddy with their self-proclaimed victory, packed up their bolt cutters and biodegradable water bottles, leaving the site before dawn. They missed the critical turning point, the moment the first 3,000 monkeys realized they were soaking wet, sticky with morning dew, and utterly unprepared for actual nature. Imagine giving a spoiled house cat a survival knife and dropping it into the Siberian wilderness. That was the initial vibe. The jungle, meanwhile, was not welcoming its long-lost children. It met them with biting insects, poisonous flora, and a deep biological skepticism. Dr. Thorne discovered the breach at sunrise. He didn't panic. He just pinched the bridge of his nose, muttered something about needing a stronger espresso, and calmly observed the chaos via hidden cameras. The footage was illuminating. The monkeys, particularly the dominant capuchins, didn't flee into the forest. They established a beachhead. They occupied the high ground specifically, the massive, decommissioned observation tower. They didn't forage for food. They remembered the delivery schedule. They didn't run from predators. They studied the facility's security schematics they'd been watching the guards use for years. They learned our patterns, Thorne whispered to his lone remaining assistant, a man named Gary, who was currently hiding in a utility closet. They learned our weaknesses. And now, they're coordinating. The dark humor of the situation was almost palpable. The activists had freed the monkeys. The monkeys, in turn, decided to use their freedom not to embrace the wild, but to recolonize the human world. The jungle fought back by trying to drown them in humidity and disease. But the monkeys were smarter. They didn't want the jungle. They wanted the infrastructure. They wanted the electricity. They wanted the tiny, specialized tools they'd watched the maintenance staff use. The perimeter of the Arcadia Retreat, once a prison, was rapidly becoming a highly organized, heavily defended simian fortress. This is where the story pivots from amusing anarchy to genuine suspense. The jungle, realizing its former inhabitants weren't going to submit to its natural order, began to close in. But it didn't use teeth and claws. It used ecology. The forest, acting like a slow, deliberate organism, started subtly sabotaging the monkeys' newfound domain. First, the vines. They grew with unnatural speed, entangling power lines and choking air vents, making the retreat's human technology useless. Then, the spores, a specific species of luminous, fast-growing fungi, began to bloom on the steel walls, coating the fortress in a shimmering, sickly green glory, beautiful and highly allergenic. But the climax of the forest's counterattack, the part that still gives Dr. Thorne nightmares, was the water. The main river, the source of the facility's power and fresh supply, swelled, not from rain, but from a sudden, unnatural shift in the subterranean water table. It began to flood the complex's lower levels, the storage rooms, the labs, and crucially, the Primate's makeshift armory of stolen gardening shears and kitchen utensils. The water was not clean, it was thick with sediment, carrying a chilling cargo, sludge-coated debris, and the silent, shimmering reflection of countless watchful eyes from the shadows. The monkeys had freed themselves from the cage, but the cage had merely become larger, greener, and infinitely more menacing. They had fought the jungle, and now, the forest had decided to end the game on its own terrifying, waterlogged terms. If the chilling tale of the Arcadia retreat and the vengeful jungle has left you questioning the true meaning of freedom, don't let the mystery end here. Hit the like button to help this story reach more people. Subscribe for weekly doses of suspenseful documentary narration. And most importantly, tell us in the comments below, if you were trapped inside the Simian fortress, would you rather face the strategic, tool-wielding monkeys, or the slow, suffocating revenge of the jungle itself? Engage with the chaos, and join us next time as we dive deeper into the darkness lurking just beyond the edge of civilization.